YoungBoy started speaking on ending Pooh Shiesty, everybody knew this crossed the line from rap beef into something way more serious, especially once the talk about his baby mama entered the picture. Hold up. Once that kind of allegation gets mentioned, it's no longer about records, alliances, or who shot first lyrically. YoungBoy clearly wasn't brushing it off or laughing it away. The tension between YB's camp and Pooh Shiesty's side was already active, built on old beef and real losses. So when Shiesty's name got linked to YoungBoy's baby mama, Janiyah, it didn't feel accidental. Back in 2021, things already got shaky when Pooh was accused of sliding into her comments and DMs while she was posting about being single. Janiyah even posted an old DM to show he had reached out before, while Pooh jumped on Instagram Live denying anything recent. No receipts ever confirmed anything physical, and nothing went beyond messages, but that kind of back and forth alone is enough to plant a seed that never really dies. Fast forward to 2025, and that same situation resurfaced in a much uglier way. Now there are people flat out claiming Pooh ran a train on YoungBoy's baby mama, Janiyah. To be clear, no receipts are proving that ever happened, no videos, no hard proof, but people aren't dismissing the rumor either. For some, this doesn't feel like random internet chatter. When that old IG back and forth between Janiyah and Pooh resurfaced, it wasn't just messy energy, it was timing, context, and how both sides moved afterward. Janiyah didn't just deny it and move on. She pulled receipts, old DMs, screenshots showing communication, even if they were dated. And once people see messages existed at one point, they start assuming there's more that never made it public. Pooh's response raised eyebrows too. Instead of fully clowning the rumor or flat out shutting it down, he went straight into damage control, hopped on live, brushed it off as old news, and tried to downplay the connection rather than erase it. I don't know about you, but when someone focuses more on when something happened instead of if it happened, people start reading between the lines. From there, the story took on a life of its own. Look at how Janiyah was moving at the time. Single, public, and clearly not worried about YoungBoy's feelings, while Pooh was outside buzzing and connected to people already beefing with YB's camp. One thing leads to another, and suddenly the idea of trains being run doesn't sound that crazy to people who understand how these scenes move. I mean, we already know Pooh stays shooting his shot. Just weeks ago, he was trying his luck with Cardi again. So to some folks, it's not wild to think he'd try something with Janiyah while she was single. Now listen, nobody knows for sure if that train ever happened, but what we do know is that since that rumor caught momentum, it spread fast, and people immediately started tying it back to YoungBoy's energy and his tone. And the way he started talking about Pooh Shiesty showed exactly where his head was at. YB came out aggressive, like he was ready for smoke, no hesitation. And listen to this, in street culture, once somebody speaks on your baby mama, that's automatic tension. But hold up. It wasn't just the baby mama rumors that flipped this from whispers to open pressure. What really escalated things was Pooh openly throwing shots at YoungBoy's entire camp. Not long after his release, Pooh popped up on Benedon's stream. This was supposed to be his victory lap. First real appearance back, fans flooding the chat, comments flying, energy high, Pooh laughing, freestyling, teasing music, moving like he never missed a step. Everything about that stream screamed, "I'm back outside." And for a moment, it looked like he was just focused on reclaiming his spot. Then that phone call happened. While Ben was live, he was on the phone with Rakai, a streamer known for riding heavy with NBA YoungBoy. When the phone got passed to Pooh Shiesty, Rakai said what he said, claiming 4KT, "I'm 4K Trey." Now pause. 4KT isn't some random internet phrase. That's YoungBoy's set, his movement, his flag. Everybody in the culture knows exactly what that represents, especially someone like Pooh Shiesty, who's been in the industry, in the streets, and even admitted to listening to YoungBoy while he was locked up. So when Pooh played confused and asked, "What's that?" that wasn't ignorance, that was strategy. Acting like he didn't know 4KT wasn't about being out of the loop. It was about refusing to acknowledge YoungBoy's camp at all. And in street culture, that's colder than a diss. A diss at least admits the other side exists. Ignoring a whole movement is basically saying, "Y'all don't even matter." And he did it live in front of tens of thousands of people. That moment landed heavily.
Let's be real, Pooh chose a side right there on that stream, and by brushing off 4KT like it was nothing, he made it clear he wasn't neutral, wasn't open to peace, and wasn't about to give YoungBoy even surface-level respect. That lined up perfectly with his loyalty to Lil Durk, the same guy who held him down through his entire federal bid, kept his name ringing on stages, and made sure he was good when the industry went silent. Now listen closely, because to understand why Pooh moved like that on stream, you've got to understand one thing first. Pooh and Durk aren't just cool, that's family. Durk caught Pooh right at his peak when he was buzzing heavy out of Memphis. Durk didn't hesitate. He jumped on Back in Blood, and that record flipped Pooh's career overnight. From that point, Pooh went national, tied into Chicago, connected to OTF, and moving with real backing. And here's the part people forget. The music was only half the story. When Pooh caught that federal case and everything went quiet, the industry did what it always does. They backed away. But not Durk. Durk kept his name alive, made sure he had commissary, and made sure he wasn't forgotten while doing real time. That kind of loyalty changes how you move forever. That's why we saw Pooh snapping at fans who acted funny about Durk. That's why he shut down anything tied to YoungBoy's camp. And that's exactly why pretending to not know 4KT wasn't an accident. It was loyalty in real time. And as it usually goes, riding with Durk didn't just mean standing beside him, it meant inheriting his enemies. Once Pooh made it clear he was OTF for life, he automatically stepped into a war that started long before he ever had personal issues with NBA YoungBoy. It all traces back to one night that shifted the entire rap game forever. And listen closely, because once you really understand what went down, everything that followed starts clicking into place. We've got to rewind to November 6th, 2020, because that single moment outside an Atlanta hookah lounge flipped the industry on its head. King Von and Quando Rondo had already been orbiting each other through music ties and affiliations. Nothing super direct at first, but as you already know, Von was closely aligned with Lil Durk, and Quando was locked in with NBA YoungBoy. Chicago versus Louisiana tension had already been simmering, and once egos, entourages, and reputations collide, it doesn't take much for things to crack. Outside Monaco Hookah Lounge, that pressure finally exploded. Words were exchanged, energy spiked, and according to surveillance footage and witnesses, Von threw the first punch at Quando. Once that happened, everything unraveled instantly. Crews rushed in, fists started flying, and chaos took over within seconds. That's when Lil Tim, one of Quando's close associates, pulled out a gun and lit the scene up. Off-duty police were already nearby. Shots rang out from different directions, and what began as a street scuffle turned into a deadly shooting almost immediately. Later, Quando would claim he didn't even realize it was King Von at first, and that there was no personal beef that night, just a situation that escalated way too fast, way too far. But here's where facts stopped mattering. In the streets, the story isn't written by security footage, it's written by loyalty. Von was loved, respected, and seen as one of Chicago's real voices, so the narrative locked in immediately. Quando and his side were blamed for Von's death, period. And because Quando was signed to NBA YoungBoy's Never Broke Again label, that blame didn't stop with him. It traveled straight up the chain. In the eyes of the streets, YoungBoy's camp became responsible by association. Fair or unfair, that's how it goes. When alliances outweigh details, YoungBoy became tied to the night Chicago lost Von. And once that label sticks, it never fades. Every song, every move, every affiliation gets viewed through that lens. That's why Durk couldn't stay neutral. That's why the situation couldn't just be brushed off. And that's exactly why anyone riding with either side automatically inherited the smoke. And once YoungBoy responded the only way he knows, through music, there was no road back to peace. When YoungBoy dropped Bring the Hook in January 2022, it wasn't just another song, it was gasoline on a fire that was already burning. The record went straight at O-Block by name and referenced Von's death directly. That Squid Game, O-Block pack get rolled up. For anyone tapped into street culture, that wasn't just a diss, that was crossing sacred ground. Everybody knows O-Block isn't just a place, it's a symbol, the home turf of Von, Durk, and an entire legacy built on loyalty, loss, and respect. By mocking a fallen figure and naming that block, YoungBoy crossed an unspoken line. You don't speak on the dead in hip-hop, especially when entire neighborhoods are watching, and that forced a response. Durk couldn't stay silent. The streets, the fans, and his own circle weren't letting that slide. Durk has his own way of saying, "We see you and we remember." It wasn't just a post, it was a signal, a warning that disrespect comes with consequences, setting off a chain reaction of music, alliances, and beefs that stretched across cities. The fallout didn't stop there. With tracks like Know As I Know, YoungBoy kept applying pressure, while Durk and affiliates responded through records and social media, keeping the tension alive. The escalation was locked in, the sides were chosen, and the stakes were bigger than clout. This beef isn't just music, it's a full-blown energy that lives in the